everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson, and I'll be your host for this one. As per usual, I'm joined by Scott and Joris, fresh off an international break. How are you guys doing this evening?
Very well, and delighted to be back. And can I be the first one of us this week to say Allez Union after last night's magnificence? But more on that later.
But we're fully neutral, of course. Just like King's defense seems to be leaking goals literally every day. Well, the last 18 games now and counting.
Yeah, they are definitely leaking. And to be fair, I think we're neutral in the league, but when it comes to European football, we are 100% any Belgian side. Doesn't matter who you are, we will be supporting you. I have to admit, guys, I did have a dream, or it could have been a nightmare that I didn't actually share with you, but I'm going to share it now, where we actually sat down in person to record an episode. And Joris, you just completely started kicking off because I skipped over Genk to the point where you just stormed off and walked out and you wouldn't speak to us and you said you quit the podcast. So we maybe won't want to talk about Genk this evening because they are currently 1-0 down, but that might happen. It might have been a premonition. I'm hoping it isn't. But it was nice that we were all in person.
I'll be very happy to not talk about Genk. Don't worry about that.
Well, we know who not to discuss on the agenda when we do finally record live in person, which we will do at some point. Something we've been talking about for ages.
It's got to happen. It definitely will at some point. You're right. Let me quickly run through the results and then we'll dive straight into this episode. Obviously, it does feel a little bit weird because the transfer window obviously closed as well during the international break. So we are going to touch on that as part of this podcast episode as well. But let me quickly go through the results from last week. So Standard drew 1-1 with Mechelen. That game also included a terrible looking injury to Josue Homawu. We wish him all the best in his recovery. There hasn't really been much. It's he's out for an indefinite period. But it was, quite concerning watching that and not kind of really knowing what had happened or what was going on. But everyone here wishes him all the best in his recovery. Zulte Waregem, they beat Leuven 2-0 at home for a much needed and, in my opinion, a deserved win. I think their performances have been a lot better than their record shows, and they definitely did with that. Dender remain winless. They lost late on to Union ahead of their Champions League clash. RAAL, with the shock of the weekend, they beat Club Brugge 1-0 with Solis missing a very, very late penalty, which I don't know if you guys heard, but Will Downing said that it probably landed in Charleroi. That's how far off it was. So it was great. So Will, if you're listening, I massively appreciated your commentary on that one. That was hilarious. And it's been great to have Will back on my TV commentating on the games because, all those funny little comments that he sticks in are great. And someone that actually knows the league. How many times have we watched Belgian teams on English TV where someone actually has no idea what they're talking about, but Will definitely does. His next game was actually Antwerp against Ghent. That one finished 2-1 to Ghent. A couple of new boys making an impact there. Potentially game of the weekend, Charleroi beat Cercle Bruges by 3-2. Anderlecht and Genk drew 1-1. And Sint Truiden's unbeaten run came to an end with a 3-0 defeat to Westerlo. And as of recording, Genk are losing 1-0 to Charleroi. But we can leave that for now and ignore that result because by next week we'll have probably forgotten about it. I guess let's kind of pivot back to just before last week's action kicked off. And like I said, we had the wrap up of the transfer window. Obviously in Belgium, as most people know, it ends slightly later than in the UK. So there's a little bit more time. It's always quite nice. I think it's quite good for smaller brackets leagues to do that because once their players get pinched on deadline day by panicking Premier League teams more than anything, they've actually got a little bit of a chance to go and find someone. Although then their player might get pinched by another Belgian team on that deadline day and then they've got no time to go and find someone. And I know that Standard have obviously had that issue with the central defence now with Homer out and a couple of players injured. They decided not to bring in any defenders and that has bit them in the bum, quite literally. But guys, I just wanted to get a overview from what each of you, just who your favourite signing of the window is, why you like that. We haven't actually discussed this beforehand, so we have no idea. We may all pick the same person. Although Scott said he's got two, so at least you've got one extra outside of Joris and I. So I'll go for Joris first, so that you can then potentially pick one of your other ones if Joris just take one of them. But so Joris, who was your signing of the window at this moment? Obviously, it could be proved, it could be completely wrong, and it could be a terrible signing. But just based on what you've seen.
There is definitely a lot of recency bias on this one, and I'm quite certain Scott will not have thought about this one. But okay, correct me if I'm wrong if he was on your list later, Scott. But it's La Louviere's Jerry Afriyi, who had a really good game against Club Brugge last weekend, as did the whole side. I did not expect to really pick a player from La Louvière there, of course, and he's only on loan. So yeah, it's a loan transfer. We'll only see him this season most likely if he continues like this. He's on loan from Al Qadsia, I guess, the Saudi side that signed among others Bonsuba and some other players as well. But yeah, the Ghanaian center forward, he's just 18 and already loaned out there, making minutes at high level, and interesting to see how he continues. But yeah, just he had a really good game against Club Brugge, and is starting more and more since he came in, which is relatively late in the window. It's not even a month there. But I'm just curious to see how he will develop across the season, and if he can indeed be crucial to them, maybe to their survival in the league as well. Which, I mean, we still have to see if that will happen, but they're on a good track for that, and I think he's one of the reasons for that as well. So just it's more of a left field pick, but I think that I'll go for that one and see how that one pans out.
No, I love that. That is a left field pick, but that's kind of what I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear kind of the bog standard ones, that's for sure. And I mean, 18 years old as well. Like, that's so exciting, kind of, to see that. And that's a position that we know they needed someone in, kind of that forward, creative kind of positioning. And that's, I think, at the back they've kind of shown already that, like we can say as well, like they've had 3 clean sheets at home in a row. So like defensively, at home at least, they seem pretty on it. Piano in goal has been fantastic as well. Like, he's arguably been one of the best performing goalkeepers in a weekend where goalkeepers decided not to show themselves to be in the best light, especially someone in that club game, which obviously brought the whole kind of discussion around rotation back into the fore, to the point where I saw someone put, I think it was on one of the Belgian podcasts, someone was like, "You've got the best keeper in the country, why is he on the bench?" But we'll leave that discussion to the Club Brugge fans and the Club Brugge management, because I'm sure that discussion is being had right now. But yeah, no, I love that pick. That's a fantastic pick. Very exciting. Scott, no pressure, you got to follow that one.
Well, mine's is kind of the opposite, and it might be a slightly more predictable one in some respects, because this is somebody that a lot of people, or people who've been watching Belgian football, will be very, very well aware of by now. And this is one I got quite excited about when it happened, because I thought that's as solid a pickup and a signing as any side can kind of make. The destination as to where he's gone was perhaps a little bit of a surprise. We thought probably he would have left Belgium, but he didn't leave Belgium. He left Charleroi to go to Brussels, which isn't that far away, much closer than we expected. It's Adam Zorgan. We all know how good he is. He's now starting to prove how good he is in a slightly different way, playing in a different side with a different system. So he's been asked to do some different things. That perhaps is exemplified by the fact that he did miss a few games earlier in the season because he was still kind of getting up to speed with the demands of Union's system. So they gave him a little bit of time to adjust. But since then, he's started to produce the goods. And do it consistently, and for such a bittersweet short period. I know I've said this before, I'm going to say it again because it just gives me another opportunity to do it. That midfield pairing for that short period of Zorgan and Charlie Vanout was as good a midfield pairing as you will see anywhere. The stuff of beauty. I'm still sad, and I think I always will be, that, you know, we won't get to see a whole season of that, because I was getting very excited about the prospect of that. Having said that, Charlie Vanout obviously is left now. He's gone to France. Doesn't seem to have harmed that midfield too much since he's left at all. Succession planning always being in place at Union, even if they don't want to lose somebody as good and as important as he was. But yeah, Adam Zorgan, still has room to get even better, I think, as well. And from Union's perspective, I mean, what are we talking? Something in the region of 4 million, something like that. I think they're going to get a great return on that at some point as well, because he's gone smartly, I think, to a club who will give him a platform to perhaps go to where a lot of people would like to see him go to in the future over the next year, 18 months perhaps as well. And last night's showing and getting Champions League football regularly is absolutely going to do no harms to that profile at all. So although it's slightly more predictable, I think it is one of the more solid in terms of what you're going to get and what he's going to add to that side. So, a steal at 4 million. The other one I actually had in reserve, funnily enough, is another incoming to Union. And I'll mention it just briefly because I think in some ways it's equally good, but just different. It's Louis Patrice, who is quite underrated, who's been getting better and better, I think, not getting the credit for it at Sint Truiden. They expected him to leave. He did. Union have picked him up. Another really wise one, I think. Really solid, really good offensively for a right back, I think. Gets his balance right. Hard working, again, room for improvement there will grow. And Union have identified some really good quality domestic-based players who they know can do it at this level, but yet have room to improve still, which is obviously what you want, regardless of their age. So, really good pickups, those two. But yeah, Adams Organ, kind of all day long for me, the best signing of the window.
I think with Organ as well, I think it's easy to kind of sit and you actually may disagree, but it's easy to sit here and be like, oh, that's such an obvious one for you to pick. But it's like he still kind of moved and fitted into a different kind of system. And before, there was no guarantee that he would perform to that level when he moved into Union. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it has been a good signing because it's not like he's just got in and it's like, oh, that's weird. Like you've just signed one of the best players in the Pro League without kind of thinking about your system and where he's going to fit and stuff like that. And yeah, he's such a joy to watch. And it's kind of like the Champions League, not only for like in terms of moving to another league, and I'm shocked he's not in Ligue 1. Like I thought that just seems like such a natural kind of move, and maybe it's just like an obvious one because like lots of like Algerian players will make that kind of move over there, or potentially they could go to like Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that. So there's always that big money Saudi move kind of on the horizon as well that he could pick up, because we saw Cameron Puertas did it with Saudi Arabia as well. Like he did the leap, but now he's back in the Bundesliga. He's got his payday and he's come back. But no, I like that one. And Patrice as well. Yeah, I think Patrice is an interesting one because like it didn't work at Anderlecht for him. Like, is it now going to work at Union? Different pressures, obviously. Kind of, he's kind of probably learned from that, and now he's back in Brussels. So it's either a Brussels thing or just an Anderlecht thing. We'll find out. But I think in terms of kind of, they obviously with Castro Montes leaving, they needed someone to kind of replace. And I think if you were just going to go internal in Belgium, like that is quite an obvious player to pick, isn't it? Because again, he fits the system. Yours, I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts on that you want to add, because I know you were kind of the person that beat the Adams Organ's really good drum from the beginning on this podcast. I'm not going to say you were part of the Adams Organ fan club because I don't want to be that strong, but you were one of those guys who was like, this guy's really flipping good.
I just virtually threw away all my fan banners and everything, and like the president's plaque of that club, but fan club. But definitely a good pickup. I was a bit skeptical about him for that Union transfer because of the system being different and whether he would really fit that. Well, he needed a little, but not that much, because I mean we're still middle of September, still early. But he needed a very little time in the beginning to adapt to that. Indeed, to the intensity mainly, maybe not the system on its own, but indeed more like the intensity. But it seems like he's slotted in perfectly already by now, and that can only lead to good results. On Patrice, I have maybe the opposite, actually, kind of almost polar opposite in my opinion. Maybe like I'm not super convinced by him as a player, but I do think he fits the system. So I'm with Union, so that actually might be a good match on that. And okay, the intensity we know he has. Whether that's in the long run enough, we'll have to see. But he's not off to a bad start either. at least. And interesting pickups for sure. Uno is the usual suspect in this kind of lists, I guess, since they always come with some interesting transfers. Usually they seem to work out. A few weeks ago, I was even still different topic, but like I was still talking about Kevin Rodriguez as one of those that didn't really work out, and now he's like, is he top scorer in the league? I think so. I think he's joined top scorer of the league now, and he performed really well in the Champions League game as well. So, I mean, yeah, I really do not doubt any kind of decision anymore from them. But now, and it hurts to say that to me, but objectively speaking, you just can't ignore that.
It's funny, isn't it, guys? Because Union are the one side in Belgium who, to be fair, do the one thing that none of the other sides do, and that is panicking. They don't do it. Other sides do it really quickly. Some do it pretty quickly. Most do it pretty quickly, actually, probably. But Union don't. Even when people are starting to ask them questions, which doesn't happen that often, they remain calm and often just kind of work their way through a situation and see the long game on most things. And on virtually everything, as Joris was saying, they've kind of been proved right. On virtually everything, and kind of nobody can say that. So people need to look at obviously what they're doing, and again, we'll say it because we're always saying it when we're talking about them. They've proved they kind of know what they're doing, and the number of duds, as it were, are maybe Leuven know a little bit more about that because they've picked up some players from Union who didn't work out there, so maybe that was part of their policy, seeing as it's just down the road.
Yeah, when I ranted about their thing and how they should be more like Union, I didn't mean they should go and just start picking up players from Union if they could. But to be fair, I think Hedok Tech Lab's actually, and Tejo, they are actually good players. It's just that they weren't good enough for what Union needed them to be. But I don't think they fit a Leuven system. But what is a Leuven system? But that's a conversation for another day, I'm sure. I had a couple... Yeah, that I've been kind of like umming and ahhing about. One, sadly, we won't see for a couple of weeks, was actually Homewu. I thought he's been fantastic since he came in to stand Liège at the back. I think he's elevated a defence that somehow had a good record last season, but was horrendous. Like, if you watch the games, they were just error-prone and no one was taking advantage. But I think he came in and in some of the games I've watched, it almost felt like he was defending on his own. He just ultimately stepped up as a leader there. So, yeah, we'll have to see what this injury's like because it's hard to say he's going to be a fantastic signing. We just don't know what's going to happen. Ilamar Icha, I'd obviously always stick in there, even if he was rubbish. I'd say he's a fantastic signing. So, sticking with standard a little bit, maybe I've got this one and then kind of one more, but these are more maybes. I do really like what I've seen so far from Thomas Henry. Not in terms of just the goal scoring, it's the physical presence up front that I just feel like that club has not had for so long. And you saw it against Mechelen. The man should be getting way more fouls than he does. Like Mechelen were all over him, just trying to pull him over and stuff like that. And because he's such a big physical presence, he doesn't get the kind of the calls that he deserves. But I think he's just added something to their attack that I think everyone will fancy getting something out of. And then Kadri going to Ghent. I know Ghent are a bit of a basket case when it comes to signings, but I was trying to think of the last time they've had like a really creative kind of player in there that can create something almost out of nothing. And the kind of name that came to mind, and they're completely different players, so I'm not really comparing the two in that sense, would be Tisa Dali. Like Tisa Dali he'd create something out of nothing. Like he'd get into the box and he'd score a goal out of nothing. Like Kadri was doing that for Kortrijk. He's now arguably should be in a better system, so he should be able to kind of get more assists at least, and he obviously got assists at the weekend. Although Gandelman got given one of the assists from that game, and I don't know if you've seen it, but like he just shot and the ball came off the goalkeeper and they gave him an assist, that's not an assist. Like, come on. So yeah, I'm happy someone picked Kadri up. Maybe not happy that it was Ghent, but I do feel like they've missed a player like that since Tisa Dali left. They haven't really had someone very fun to watch that you're like, oh, this guy's going to do something exciting and different. So yeah, I think Homewu is kind of the guy that I'm sticking at the top of that list of kind of my favourite signings so far from what I've seen, because I had no expectations for what he was going to bring from the Romanian league. But yeah, apart from that, those are a couple of other names that I've stuck in. We will talk about Union's game in Europe, so we've this might be quite a Union heavy podcast episode. So let's kind of talk about the opposition that they faced this weekend, which is Dender. People that listen to this podcast know I love a relegation 6-pointer. I love the play downs and all that sort of thing. Like, it's been one of my favourite. I love watching the terrible football that goes on down there, just because of the drama and the tension. So I love focusing on teams at the bottom. But Dender, obviously, the only team without a win. They are 5 points behind second bottom Leuven. I'm just interested to see what you guys are thinking of them now that the transfer window's shut. Like, where do you think they have like a chance of not being the team that finishes bottom at the end of this season? And even then, they could finish bottom and still stay up. There's obviously that kind of real possibility depending on how they do against all of those other sides. But I don't know. I saw the business they did, and it's just like, I think they're strong in certain areas, but the areas they're strong in are kind of almost, we'll say, irrelevant to like what they need. They need someone to score goals and so, like a defense that's going to keep them out. And I don't think they've got those players in there, but they've got some really nice hard-working midfielders, some nice kind of full-backs that can put a good ball into the box and stuff like that and gap up and down. But outside of that, I just don't think they have enough. And Hakamikon's come in, obviously, from Club Bruges. He said there's some fantastic players here. I don't know if he's just saying that or if he actually believes that, just to tell himself. Like, there are some good. I think Roman Kret's a good player. I think he was a good player for them last season, but I don't think he's a difference maker for them. So, yeah, what are your guys' kind of feelings on Dender at the moment? And is there any hope? Can you give Dender fans any hope that they will not be the worst team in the Pro League this season?
I think it's really hard, guys, isn't it, to actually make a case that they aren't cooked. It really is. I mean, okay, we're only 7 games in, limited data, but the data as it stands at the moment is pretty scary. Hank Milcon did actually say the other day, just before the game at the weekend against Union, that he felt that there was enough quality in that squad to kind of keep them in the division. And I kind of know why he's saying that. They did pick up Sambu Marshoni, by the way, a player I've always quite liked. I think he's a solid player. So he'll add something. Yeah, it's really difficult to make a case to say that they're not going to finish bottom. They've only got 2 points at the moment. They're kind of 5 points adrift of even the spot above them, and you just feel that, I don't know. Imagine a situation another couple of weeks away where that gap is more than that. And as Ben was saying, you know what I mean? You can finish bottom and still save your arse because of the way things work, but because they're struggling so badly offensively, you wouldn't have any confidence that going into a playoff encounter that they would necessarily kind of triumph in that, certainly at the moment, without something kind of changing. There were a couple of little positive chinks really in the game this weekend. I think Hayek Milcon is fully aware of really what the principal issues are. In fact, he talked about them a little bit this week. And I think he's going to be working in the short term on trying to make sure that some of the more offensive players in the side are a bit braver, and that they make the best use of their transitions, because we know how important that is in games at all levels now. And I think there were moments in the game this weekend where if they'd made some better choices at key points, possibly they could have got something out of that game. So there are some positives there on the basis of one game for Hayek Milcon, I think, but a lot to work on, obviously, because they've got one of the 2 smallest budgets in the league as well. There's not a lot they're going to be able to do in the January window, which is an entirely different window anyway. So it's really difficult to make a case against that. Their outputs, are really bad as well. I mean, I think over the 7 games, an average of less than 3 shots per game. The only encouraging thing really is they are slightly underperforming in their XG, and that's based on 7 games data, which is not scientific. I'm going to underline that. It's not too much you can read into that, but their XG based on those 7 games is actually double what they've achieved. So that tells me there's something going on in there where they're doing a little bit better than the points suggests. Hank Milken, by the way, and it's worth kind of highlighting him. I think he's a good appointment. I wrote a little piece for the Substack last week, which is still there, which talked a little bit about his background. Good appointment, I think. It's about the long game. It's about developing young players. It's about staying in a division, hopefully, but it's also about, in the worst case scenario where they do go back down, he's the sort of coach, I think, who's quite well placed to, for some continuity inside the club as well, and to prevent too much disruption. Vincent Everard leaving when he did, quite unexpectedly, I think. Julian Gorius, the sporting director at Dender, did say that he, who had a very good relationship with Vincent Everard, it was a surprise to him as well. So the phone rang and Vincent went, yep, I'm coming to Liège very, very quickly for reasons we can all understand, I think. But I think there was something in Vincent Everard that, was probably aware of the fact that the club are it's that difficult second season thing, isn't it? The second album. I think he had a sense perhaps that this season was going to be kind of quite different. And when that opportunity comes along to try something quite different to everything else that he's done in his career, it's exciting for him. But yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for them.
Let's see. I'll give that glimmer of hope. They play against La Louvière in 2 weeks' time. And La Louvière face Leuven as well, the two sides that are underneath them now. So for La Louvière, it will be crucial weeks. Of course, we've been talking them up a little bit at the beginning of this show, of this week's episode. But things could go wrong for them if they don't get enough points out of those games, and especially for Dender to come back to them. If Dender win that game, mutual game between them, things could look different. Of course, they would most likely, speaking a bit cautiously still, but most likely still be behind them, but the gap will be a lot narrower. Probably not only to La Louvière at that point as well. So that's the big question, of course, if that's indeed the case. But I guess they that's maybe where they put their hopes on as well, and hopefully grab some points here and there. Of course, they now lost 5 in a row. That's never a good sign. Picked up only 2 points, but that was also in the first 2 games of the season, as the attentive listener might have noticed. That's a glimmer of hope. Maybe the schedule. And I do think they don't really have like a terrible squad overall, but the key areas is that might be the thing. The other thing might still be some strikers are still only coming back. I thought about that a few weeks ago already. So okay, at some point they should start producing, of course, but now is the time for them to do that, to at least maybe solve or partially solve one of those issue areas, problematic areas, and hold on. And also the other thing, signing off indeed, of course, the format plays in their favor if really needed. I know indeed they do not really have a big budget, but maybe they can play, if needed, they can place some bets in January as well, both in and outgoing in that case, I presume. That's something to see. The season is still long. That's basically, I guess, what I'm saying here. That as a good sign, maybe a sign is maybe not the right thing, but like a good thing for them currently. And of course, new manager, who knows? He might just need a little more time to adjust the players might need some time to adjust to his system. Maybe it for all clicks in a few weeks, but at the moment that's not really the case yet. But who knows? In a couple of week times we might speak differently. But my only thing here is maybe bide your time, and maybe things will go better as a Dender fan.
Yeah, they'd hope to see more than 2 goals in 7 games. I think that's the biggest concern. But maybe like they can get in Simba firing. If Bert can kind of push on a little bit more, like he had a couple of moments last season, but never really consistent. And Simba as well didn't really consistently score goals. It was almost by committee, with Sheila kind of leading the way with 9, I think it was. So it's kind of, that's where you're looking at. I'm hopefully going to be there in a couple of weeks' time to see them face Mechelen. So I will let you know my verdict after that. I think I might pick up the away shirt as well. It's actually quite a nice away shirt, the red one. So I'll be hoping that it won't be a cursed shirt that deals with a relegation. But it's like you said, they can kind of look in January and see you can also you can plan both ways. You could be like, hedge your bets, get a couple of players in that you think would help you in the second tier, but they're good enough they could probably beat a second tier side and keep you in the first tier. So it's kind of 50-50 in that sort of sense.
I want to quickly jump into something here because I noticed we didn't mention them in this, but it kind of fits here. They didn't mention any of their signings in the transfer window, but Mechelen, I think, actually did a really good, smart job in their transfer business in general, given the situation, building for the 2 seasons as well, bringing in a lot of young players. Maybe to some fans, not enough Belgians, especially with quite some outgoings in that front, and them being quite proud about that. But I do think they deserve a shout, like in the whole business this time maybe, and planning for this 2 season span, hopefully at least for everyone, for them. It's looking good so far as well. The results are still encouraging enough so that they should not be worrying for relegation. But okay, again, way too early to really say things like that, but it has kicked off nicely, and there's still some time to readjust as well, still, if eventually it would be needed in winter. But that just wanted to give a quick shout to Mechelen there as well, in the middle of everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. Since they've come up, and you know what, everybody, I didn't pay him to say that either. Yeah, the rebalancing of the squad is something that's been needing to happen there for ages, and I've been quite impressed by their window. I think Tom Callaway's done actually quite a good job. We will see whether some of those signings actually come good in the way that they want, but I think the theory behind what's going on there is actually spot on, and it's kind of come together quite late on for them in the window. But yeah, they're doing okay at the moment.
They definitely are, and we'll talk about one of their former players, in a second. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm glad you raised that, Joris. I think there's been some really interesting signings. Although you're the Zorgan fan club, I'm the Bill Antonio fan club, and there's been a distinct lack of Bill Antonio. And whenever he comes on, he just makes things happen. He's so direct. And like, he comes on against Standard, he's getting fouls, he's bursting down the line. I'm like, come on, let's give this man some more playing time, please. So yeah, I'm on the Bill Antonio watch list. I'm kind of hammering for him. And if he's going to play against Dender when I'm there, I'm hoping, and score a goal and prove me right. And I'll bring my Zimbabwe flag with the Bill Antonio fan club written on the front of it as well. So yeah, we'll be there. All kind of guns blazing, that's for sure.
Are you going to write, just before we move on, are you going to write, Bill, can I have your shirt on the Zimbabwe flag?
Yeah. I don't think it'll fit me, to be honest.
Don't take a bit of cardboard. Yeah, that'll get his attention.
I think it'd be a bit small. I don't think I'd squeeze into his shirt, unfortunately. But I can still get it as a little memento, maybe. I'd be like, who the hell is this weirdo? Freaking the crowd. One player that did leave, and honestly, I found it like the weirdest thing when he came on at the weekend for Union was Rob Scuffs, and he came on again last night against PSV. I was like, oh my god, this is so just him in a Union shirt just felt so weird. I'm just so used to him in that yellow and red kind of Mechelen shirt, but he comes on last night, and they're already 3-0 up at the time. Absolutely ridiculously good performance from Union, and I think we don't always get the chance to kind of talk about the European games because of the timings we record, but this one kind of worked out quite well in the end for us to kind of have a little chat about it. And I don't know what you guys expected going into it. My expectations were that Union will be Union and they'll be competitive in the Champions League. I didn't think that meant they'd win X amount of games. I just feel like whatever game they're going to go into, they're going to be competitive. And PSV were just, I don't know, I just don't think they were prepared for what was about to hit them. And it is something, isn't there, guys, about seeing the Belgian champions go and beat the Dutch champions in the Champions League. Like, it is quite nice. And I know that obviously Union aren't always everyone's favourite team in Belgium, but kind of getting one over on the neighbours in kind of, at least in a domestic kind of league setting, is quite nice, especially when everyone talks about the Benelux kind of Beneliga kind of combination thing. It's normally they're like the Dutch teams would dominate, but Union go there and they kind of, they do that to them, which is really good. And yet they just, even the formation he put out, like Pocagnoli put out, I mean, obviously like Fuseni was injured and stuff, but he just goes double bigs up front with David and Rodriguez. I was like, they're just going to go and bully PSV. And I thought PSV was shocking, to be honest. I thought they were just like really, really bad. It felt like it didn't feel like watching a Peter Bosch side where you're kind of like, oh, they're going to blitz you, they're going to be attacking you, they're going to be all over you. Like, Union dealt with them so well. Burgess was fantastic, McAllister was fantastic, Khalili was fantastic, Zorgan we've already mentioned. Shout out Anwar Al-Hajj, spit that one out. That goal was just, it was kind of, for me, it's what I've wanted to see from him for so long, where he can just he can go past a player and stick it in the back of the net. He doesn't do it as often as he probably would like to, but he just got so much space. Niang, I can't remember who was commentating for TNT that I was watching, but he was like, this guy just doesn't stop running. And it was really nice to hear, like, they were just obviously waxing lyrical about the recruitment policy, kind of where this club's come from, all this sort of stuff, and like talking about the background of the players and stuff like that, and how, like this time last year, I was just thinking, we were kind of wondering, is Pocagnoli the man? In Europe, they were pretty poor to start with. They're pretty poor domestically to start with. And then they go and just win this one. It should have been 3-0. Like, it's a shame they weren't able to hold on to that clean sheet. And I was like, when it went in, I was like, oh no, here we go. Is it going to be 3-2? And then we're going to have like a squeaky bum time moment at the end. But yeah, it was kind of put everyone else on notice a little bit. And you're thinking, is it Newcastle they've got next at home? Like, I fancy, maybe I'm getting a bit too ahead of myself, but I fancy them to like really stick it to Newcastle and really get into them and kind of cause them a lot of problems. And I think clubs are going to quickly realise what Europa League teams have realised is this team doesn't actually stop. Like, Newcastle could go 3-0 up and I'll be like, Union's still got a chance to come back. Like, that's the kind of team they are. Thankfully, this time they decided to just go 3-0 up themselves and kind of destroy it. So, yeah, I hope all the Unionista fans in the away end loved it as much as it looked like they were loving it. Obviously, Alex and co were absolutely loving it as well. I'm not surprised. Just, what a special kind of Champions League night. Special start to the European kind of campaign. We've obviously got Club against Monaco. Hopefully they can do the business as well after their fantastic Champions League campaign last season. So it's just a really, really good start. And it's just a continuation of the fantastic story, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, dominant. Absolutely dominant. Really, really deserved that. And Alex shedding a little tear afterwards. He, for personal reasons, is on quite a ride of his own these days. Never mind everyone else inside the club. Heady stuff. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't massively shocked by it, if I'm honest. Just because, we've been watching Union every week for the last few years. We've been on this journey with them in a slightly different way, and the amount of times I've said to people who've asked me about Union who've maybe never seen them or who are about to see them, on the odd occasion for some reason, still using the underdog tag and all of those things that I think people have to let that go now. I think they've proved their chops, they've earned their stripes, and I think anyone who wants to label them that way, I think, is probably in for a bit of a rude shock. I mean, financially speaking, obviously, when you stack them up against a lot of sides, yes, they're an underdog, but this is a side that really knows what they're doing, I think. And more fool anybody who underestimates them. It was interesting, Peter Bosch said in the pre-match press conference, he said, this is a really good side that have been really impressive for a while, he says, and he even went as far as to say they have the tools to kind of hurt us. So I think he was well aware that, if PSV didn't play well, then they had every chance of getting done, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, the midfield as well, completely controlled that midfield. El Hadj, Zorgan, Rasmussen, all really good games. And Ben was saying, there's Rodriguez and David, two physically really difficult players to play against. I think PSB have been suspect defensively for longer than people kind of want to really talk about. And, there's a wider question here about where Dutch football's actually at. That's for another podcast. That's not for us. That's for friends next door. But considering this is supposedly the best side in the Netherlands at the moment. I was quite confident that Union would be able to get a decent result there. Not necessarily as emphatic as this, but I didn't feel like they were going to get rolled over in any way at all. And I don't think they looked out of place at this level. That was the most pleasing thing for me. I thought they looked like a side who'd been playing at that level for a while. They looked comfortable, in control of the game, dominant, good choices at the right moments, aggressive, good intensity. Everything was right. And we've got to remember, this is a side who are a bit of a nightmare to play against. They really are. For most sides, there's not going to be many sides that will play Union who are going to enjoy playing against them, no matter how big some of the teams they're about to play are, because they're about to play some bigger sides than PSV. They're not going to enjoy playing against them, I don't think. They're very difficult to play around and through in the middle, because the midfield's very strong, so that's not a weakness. And at the back, for the most part, even in Europe, they've been pretty solid as well. They mop up most of the things aerially and physically. They're very combative as well. So there aren't a lot of weaknesses in this side, really. So there's not going to be many sides that are going to enjoy playing against them. So as Ben was saying, just to underline it, they will give most sides a really good game. Even some of the elite sides that they're set to face in the coming weeks as well. And it's just really good to start that way. It'd be really good for their confidence. Good for the bonus packets as well, because they get an even bigger slice on their bonus if they go and win their next league game as well. So the bonus system in place for the most part is working, even if some players did leave this summer as well. But yeah, really exciting night, I think. And it's just another reminder to everybody else who hasn't been watching them and following their journey as closely as we have, that underestimate this side at your peril, because they're a good team.
Yeah, not that much to add. I guess all the praise is well deserved. Also, a line I never thought I would say, but it looks like Scherpen actually is an upgrade as well in goal, which was one of their minor positions. Well, one of the positions where they were a bit vulnerable at times. Not even though obviously they won a championship with Maurice, so clearly everything around that topic was more a topic from the past anyway. But so far, Scherpen is off to a good start, and that's a bit of a surprising thing to say, given what we in the Belgian league already had seen from him before. But he's clearly grown as a goalkeeper. And then, he was the only player with prior Champions League experience on the pitch for Union as well yesterday at the start, at least. But that's another area they improved at. Or it seems like in early days. I'll still keep on saying that. But other thing, don't want to draw too many conclusions yet for the rest of the campaign or against other opposition either. But we know we don't need to underestimate them indeed, as you guys said. But whether that will eventually be enough, yes or no, against Newcastle or other bigger sides, we will have to wait and see still. And everyone always thinks they reach their level, their ceiling, and so far it hasn't happened. But there has to be one somewhere. But I'm not going to bet against it, but we'll have to see and discover how it goes, because that's then the caveat I have. I do feel like Union are the perfect opponents or representative for Belgium against any Dutch side, not only because they actually now won 3 away games in span of a year against Ajax, PSV, 2 of the traditional top clubs, and Twente, who had a really good season last year as well. Their style is just especially difficult for the style of play that Dutch teams are used to, of course. So that's really something. Out of all the Belgian sides to face a Dutch opposition, they are the worst one for them, I guess, as well. And in combination with the bosses PSV, indeed, which, didn't really start the season super well anyway. Also in the league, had a home loss against Telstar. For example, but that's not taking anything away, but it's more like in general the style of play of Boss, inviting them, indeed being a bit leaky at the defense at the back sometimes. And yeah, Union really capitalized on that, as I was hoping they would do as well. They held their own in other areas of the pitch, more than their own even, I guess, on the other end parts of the pitch as well. So yeah, just really mature performance anyway from Union at Champions League level, and first Champions League victory, off to a good start. Also in the general picture, good, of course. We know we only have 3 representatives of Belgium in the league phases this season, and that we're in competition with Portugal and the Netherlands, of course, for the last part of the to be on top of them, which is currently still the case of them at the end of this season, when this season is counted as well. This is a blow for the Netherlands on that front as well. A boost for Belgium as well, for anyone's chances as well in the Champions League. Of course, we also now know this is unrelated to their result, of course, but the Benfica loss, unexpected loss against Karabakh at home. That also, like, it couldn't. The Champions League could not have started better for a Belgian side, and especially Union, maybe because. Yeah, this is. They do need the points indeed. They don't have an easy draw. So this was on paper one of the games indeed that they could maybe do something. I think I also mentioned that when we were discussing this draw, that this was maybe one of the games they could get something. At that moment, I did not recall whether that was the first game or wherever in the schedule it was, but it's maybe it might come in handy that it actually was the first game as well. So. The first initial pressure, if there was any, because they didn't really show it on the pitch anyway, is definitely off, but also points-wise and so on. Really professional performance and really cool win from Union in Eindhoven.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've both made a couple of points. I'd find it funny because you said PSV didn't start the season very well, but they did win their first game 6-1, and then the Telstar loss was kind of like, oh, hang on, this team actually isn't as good, and they've lost like the talent drop off there is actually mad when you look at the players they've lost, and they have not replaced them, like our old friend Noah Lang and players like that. So yeah, it's kind of speaking of the neighbours across the border. I think they're going to struggle to pick up coefficient points based on kind of some of the stuff I've seen from a few of their clubs this year. I think Feyenoord are probably their best chance of picking up some points. On paper, they've probably got one of the better teams, but Ajax have not been massively impressive. PSV we've just seen, I think they're going to struggle to pick up any points. They just leak at the back, and they don't look like they've got... Like Van Bommel looked quite good, but apart from that going forward, they didn't look too great. I think we talk about like Union ceiling, and kind of we keep thinking they've reached it and then they haven't. They've got a couple more shocks in them. I think I'd have to have another kind of look at their kind of fixture list. I'm going to bring it up now. Obviously they got Newcastle at home. I think they'll beat a bigger team at home, but I think they've got one more kind of away. Yeah, like you'll see they'll go to like Atletico Madrid and win or something stupid like that. Do you know what I mean? It'll just be one of those like they'll just rile up Simeone for a game, and would be quite. Or they go to Bayern and win. Do you know what I mean? Like, they'll do something like that, which would just be amazing and hilarious at the same time. Just seeing an ex-Portsmouth defender and an ex-Accrington Stanley defender on the bench against Bayern Munich, beating them away from home. Yeah, there's something magical about that, and just
I think I would pay. I think I would pay to see Big Birdie getting into a scrape with Simeone. I think that could be pretty entertaining. I'd like that as a touchline scrap. You know what I mean? A wee tackle on the touchline where they come together. Yeah, but I'm up for a bit of that.
Simeone would like love Burgess. Like Burgess is like his dream like defender, isn't it? Him and McAllister, like. I think he could have a fight with McAllister as well, but he'd be on the blower like straight away afterwards. Like, sign these lads. Like, I want a bloke that wears a like mouth guard while he's playing at the back. Yeah, that's a bit of me. A bit of shithousery as well.
And on a less serious note, I also remember last season there were some comparisons. I think it was also in Europe, but like on the looks as well between Pocognoli and Simeone as well. And just, but to be fair, like yeah, there might be something there. Okay, I don't know the current looks of both at the moment, but that's not the main point. But I do think actually the style of play indeed is like quite similar. Even though I hope that Union is indeed still a bit more playing football. Arguably, at a still in general at a lower level in the league. But in that comparison, but yeah. That could indeed be an interesting one, anyways, for multiple reasons.
It's going to be box office, that game. It's just going to be full-blooded, like people flying into tackles and stuff. Yeah, the fans are going to be right on top of it. But this is like, but you just know this is the sort of thing that Burgess clearly lives for. The whole of like that stadium in Madrid just hating him is like he's just gonna love it. He's gonna absolutely love it, and yeah, I'm all here for it.
It's either an early red card or a really good game.
It's only going one or two ways. Man of the match or sent off within 2 minutes. Not even getting on the pitch, maybe. There was a guy in the American football game the other day that spat at someone before the game even started and got sent off. So it could be one of those. Let's quickly do Player of the Week. Scott, I'm going to hold yours back a little bit because it's a lovely segue that I just feel like it would be stupid to use. So Joris, sorry, trying to spit it out. Joris, I'll go to you first for your Player of the Week.
My Player of the Week comes out of the game Cercle Brugge Charleroi, which Charleroi 1-2-3 has been mentioned in the beginning, and most likely everyone knows. Anyway, if you're still listening. But it's not Dender, although he did have a decent game. Really, he scored as well. But I believe he gave the assist to Dender on his goal. And it's Romsaas I'm actually going for. Dender, I thought about him as well, but because he actually has quite a good start at Charleroi, but that missed control that in the end counts as an assist for the second goal, I believe, for where basically the biggest De Lange mistake there. I can't get over that. That control was so bad. That's it. Not that it became an assist. Good for him. That's fine. But it was just so bad to not call him man of the match for that game. I believe Romsaas was actually also involved in that counter-attack as well. So was it him giving the ball, or was it Guillagon and then him picking Guillagon through? I'm not entirely certain here, but he was involved there in Romsaas. Just really had a good game in numbers and and also it's difficult to go on that. I did watch more of the game, but while watching the highlights, I mainly noticed as well, he seems to be really involved. That's almost everything Charleroi is doing well high up on the pitch, and that was quite often as well. So that's why I picked him. Also backed up with some numbers, at least an assist. Maybe could have been 2 or more. I think he gave a second one actually. That was for the disallowed goal of Bernier. Nonetheless, he was involved at everything that was going on high up on the pitch from Charleroi side, and it looked really threatening and dangerous. Let's see if he can continue like that. Before this game, he did not really make a big impression on me, but in this week's game and games in general, if I would not have to pick a negative choice, like a goalkeeper making mistakes or all the goalkeepers making mistakes, I think it's I'll better pick a positive one in this one as well. I know Ben picked one as well that I was on my short list basically as well, as far as I know. So I'll hand over to you, Ben, if you want to go for that first, or if you want to go to Challenger Pro League already. You're the host.
No, Romsaas, I'm sure I haven't seen it, but there must have been some jokes in the press about Napoleon having success in Belgium finally, or something like that after with that middle name. You can't avoid it.
Quickly, actually, yeah. I forgot some important thing as well. It was not only that, but also in the stats, in the duels, he won all his ground duels. He won 60% of his, so 3 out of the 5 aerial duels, so headers. Yeah, also defensively, he did his work and had a good game. So also won 2 of his 3 tackles. some clearances, some interceptions, some recoveries, all quite decent numbers. But just both defensively and just an all-round good game from him.
Which is huge because they've needed someone to be a hit, and he seemed like a left field signing from them. And like when Union, like we said, they make a left field signing, we're like, that's going to hit. When Charleroi make one, we're like, what are they doing? So it's nice to see that the what are they doing could be, oh, that's actually quite good. The play that I did write down, which I've then subsequently changed because I remembered that I'd put someone else down in my head from Sunday onwards. It had been Nacho Ferry. So shout out to Nacho Ferry. I will give him his props for his goal was ridiculously good. And I just thought he was just a bully all game. As you can kind of tell from listening to this, I clearly just like physical strikers that beat people up and bully people like Thomas Henry and Ferry was doing that. And I just felt he didn't do that enough for Kortrijk. So shout out to him. But the player I've gone full, and this will only mean something to a certain proportion of the listeners, is I've gone full kind of like Garth Crooks team of the week, and I've just picked someone that scored a goal because that is literally what Garth Crooks used to do. But there's a reason why I've picked him, and it's Regana Faye from RAAL. And I don't know, I remember I watched him during the kind of Serang kind of playoff where they got promoted. And I remember thinking, this guy actually looks quite good. And then he just never really did it. He was never really a feature of their team when they got promoted. He was just coming off the bench and stuff like that. He wasn't a starting player. And I thought, well, this he's clearly not going to be able to make the step up. He's then come back as captain of RAAL and he scores the winning goal against Club Brugge. He's had some pretty decent performances as well outside of that. He hasn't been like horrendous. He's kind of fitted quite in. He's a leader on the pitch and stuff like that. He's a kind of, I was just really like props to him for kind of coming back into this league and showing that he can actually do it. And I just quite like that it's kind of more of a story one. And he was good against Club Brugge, don't get me wrong, but I think Piano was probably man of the match in that game again because he just made a lot of saves and he has been really good. But he's been the leader of the defence that's kept 3 clean sheets in a row at home. Like, you can't really argue with that. So mine is Regana Faye, who obviously had a lot of time in the Challenger Pro League. Scott, I think you've got someone that did the most ridiculous thing in the Challenger Pro League, and the stats on this is boggling. Like, everything that just happened in this game is just mental.
Yeah, this is a weird one, and I had to go for this particular Challenger Pro League player this weekend. I've broken the rules, everybody. Not that there were anybody, but yeah. So my player of the week this week is Beveren's Janus van Heek. Now, 23-year-old midfielder, of course, for those who've been doing their homework. 4 goals this weekend inside a 51-minute spell against Olympic Charleroi, who admittedly are a very, very poor side, but still 4 goals in one game is pretty unusual. But it gets weirder. Those 4 goals are more goals than Janus van Heek has scored in his entire career up to this point. His professional, and he's not young, of course, 23, 95 professional games. That was more goals in one game than his entire career up to this point. But he does actually have 5 goals for the season if you include his goal in the cup against Hoogstraten, which makes him the joint top scorer in the Challenger Pro League. As well in that sense. But a little bit of really weird trivia, Van Eyck scoring 4 goals against Olympic Charleroi goalkeeper, Matthias Van Eyck. Van Eyck against Van Eyck. Now, you know, these things don't happen very often, and conspiracy theorist freaks might have thought, hang on a minute, but we can confirm they are no relation. So namesakes, involved in something really unusual in the Challenger Pro League this weekend, and couldn't not go for him this weekend. Yeah, Janus van Eyck.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's so funny just seeing like it keep coming. You're like, he scored again. He's got a hat trick. He's got another one. It's just like, hang on, like what's going on? What a ridiculous start to the season they've had anyway as a side. Like, what's that? 5 out of 5. 13 goals scored, none conceded. Like, that is just baffling. Like, that is, an insanely good run of form to start the season. And I think, like, in the past, we've kind of seen Beveren be, they've been the slow starters, haven't they? That's been kind of the past 2 seasons. They've started quite slow, built their way into it, and suddenly they've got, like, they're into the playoffs or they're on the edge of the playoffs. Whereas this season it feels like maybe they've just said, actually, no, we can't start as slow. And to be fair, you look at their squad and it's like it's full of players with kind of some Pro League experience, like Van Eyck, obviously, and a couple of others that are in there, and some others with good CPL experience, like Kurt Abrahams as well on the wing. And yeah, it feels like they could keep it going. They face Locker and they could easily keep a clean sheet against them. They got Selang in a couple of weeks. I mean, 5th of October is the big one, isn't it? That's Kortrijk against Beveren. You feel like they should probably have similar records still by then. I haven't actually looked at Kortrijk's schedule, but yeah, they've got Molenbeek, they've got RWDM Molenbeek before that, and Eupen, who have on a pretty decent run themselves as well. But yeah, they're looking good, aren't they, Beveren? Like I can't remember. Maybe one of you will have the stats. The last time a side started this well in the Challenger and not conceding a goal, like it's mental.
Yeah, they're looking. I mean, their squad actually is pretty good. You know what I mean? There is enough depth and quality in that squad to be where they are at the moment, I think. Ben's point about, the slow start's an interesting one because, yeah, for the last couple of years, certainly that's what's kind of killed them. They've built up a head of steam much later in the season and it's not quite been enough on more than one occasion, and they're trying to do it the proper way maybe this time. We'll see if they can maintain that. Interestingly, when you look around the rest of the Challenger Pro League at the moment as well, we're talking about Beveren putting 5 past Olympic Charleroi this weekend. We were asking earlier whether Dender are cooked already. We have to, I suppose, touch very briefly on, are the other Charleroi, Olympic Charleroi and the Challenger Pro League, are they cooked? Not only bottom, played 5, lost 5. They've conceded 18 goals and only scored 2 so far. And frankly, I'm amazed that they've actually scored 2. The little that I've seen of them, they actually look so disorganised that I'm surprised they would even pass for an amateur side, to be honest. Really, really struggling. This time last year, Lokeren were having a really torrid time and they came back into the fold. And the first 10 games of the season had a real nightmare. Olympic Charleroi are setting a new standard for bad starts, really. And there's nothing to indicate that they are acclimatizing themselves as yet at all. So, they should be kind of quite worried. And Beveren could have had a lot more than 5 this weekend if they hadn't decided to dial it back as sides do when they know the game's won. I was wondering at one point how many Giannis fancied this weekend, the way that was going. I thought you could have not only a game best, a career best, but the best goal scoring tally of your entire career if you really wanted it on this particular day, because some of the goals were laid on a plate to him. He didn't have to work too hard for them, but they all count, don't they?
They most certainly do, despite something I might have written about. Well, many people being able to score these kind of goals, but in our chat, but definitely a good game for him. After having scored 4, definitely he must have felt like playing in his garden. In as a child, yeah. Few more things on the general classification in both sides, also on Charleroi a bit as well. So far, it looks like the league is, well, there might be 2 or 3 speeds maybe, and Olympic Charleroi is then the 3rd speed, really, really down. In their defense, they had quite a tough schedule. They already faced both leaders, Beveren, Kortrijk. They also Lommel, so the 3rd as well already. That speaks in their favor, and is again a bit like with Dender in 1A. In the Jupiler Pro League, in the Challenger Pro League, maybe if they bide their time, things will look a bit brighter. The distance is not there yet either, of course, but yeah. They will need to adjust really quickly and leagueless goals, because otherwise they make it difficult for themselves in many ways, for sure. Yeah, and at the same time, so again for Beveren and Kortrijk having the perfect start to the season so far. The same caveat they faced. Well, of course, there's only 5 games played, so like as usual, my caveat that like they make the teams that they beat good, not be high in the table. but they both haven't faced the top sides yet, either in what I said last time, I guess, or was it 2 times ago again? I think last time is still true as well. Lommel and Beerschot both also won their games and are still unbeaten as well. So things. It's still a bit. These 4 sides, maybe including Eupen as well, seem to have at least have a really good start for the season. Eupen has 10 points out of the possible 15 for them, and we'll have to see if they indeed more or less run away as 5. Maybe some other sides. It's still early days, so things could still change for some other sides. Maybe some other side can jump in there and hang their wagon on this. If that's an English saying in English as well, on those getting to that peloton at the back end of that peloton. But so far opposition has been in their favor a little bit, but of course that doesn't take away anything from what the sides are doing. You still need to get those points, as you guys said. Beveren have not always started the season really well. At this time they definitely did. It's quite difficult to have even better start than this. And it's a bit like an opposite Aston Villa, I guess you could currently say as well, not conceding any goals yet. I know Aston Villa actually earlier today scored a goal, but not in the league, of course. But again, that's a different podcast, that we're not interested in. But Aston Villa had not scored before for the people that are not aware, so had not scored a goal before today, I guess. Maybe also already in the cup, but in the Premier League, they still are waiting on their first goal. Beveren have not conceded yet. 1 division lower, of course, as well. In if we just make that comparison complete, but things are heating up, and like a lot of teams, I think it looks like an interesting fight on top that might get in there. I hope one of the sides beneath them, at least one of the sides beneath them, can get into that still to make it more exciting to the end. But if not, then at least it will be. It might be exciting to see who is going to face Dender or any other side that might still end up last in the Pro League this season.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I saw a funny Aston Villa kind of stat that was like Sheffield United sacked Chris Wilder and then rehired Chris Wilder before Aston Villa had even scored a goal in the new season. So that was quite a good one. Before we do bounce, I did want to. We were talking about Dender and signings in January, and if Isaac Nuhu keeps it up for Eupen and they're not kind of right at the top, that could be a potential player that they look at. What's that? 3 goals in a row for him now. An assist as well against Van Beveren, so that's 4 goals for the season. And I spoke about him a couple of weeks ago, but after literally injury hit campaign last year, it is good to see him back, and he's closing in his career best already. So hopefully he can do that, because he was quite an exciting player back when he kind of burst onto the scene. Was it 2020? Well, burst onto the scene is probably a bit dramatic, but when he kind of emerged as a player during his time in the Pro League. So good to see him back and firing. Obviously, as we mentioned, Club face Monaco tomorrow in their opening game of the Champions League. Good luck to them. Let's hope for another 3 points for the Belgian sides and their campaign off to a good start. Again, I feel like last season, they kind of, this is the sort of game they would go in and win. A few familiar faces in that Monaco side, a few familiar faces in the Monaco hierarchy as well, who know Bruges very well. So that'd be quite an interesting one to watch there. But I think that pretty much does it for this episode. As Scott said, he's got some bits out on the Substack that we have linked in the show notes. So if you want to read a little bit more about some of the things he's mentioned already in the episode, do head on over to that. But apart from that, guys,
it has, as it always is. Have a great week, everybody, whatever you're up to. And just a quick shout out to Monaco, who haven't quite made it to Bruges yet. They were due to arrive today, as sides always do, the day before big European games, because they have their press conference commitments. Monaco couldn't arrive today because they got on their plane to leave the Principality, and the air conditioning had an issue. So bad was it, in fact, that some of you may have noticed this, that the players had to strip down to their underwear and then get off the plane. And I'm not joking. So Monaco are going to be arriving a little bit later for this fixture. So Club have a slight advantage, and not just the home advantage that we know about. So we'll see what happens there, and depending when you listen to this, we may already know the outcome from that game. But yeah, shout out to Monaco and their players who hopefully have found the time to put their clothes back on.
Amazing, just amazing. You're as full of that. I mean,
Nope, nothing follows that. See you next week.
As always, if you've enjoyed this episode and you haven't reviewed it on your podcast app of choice, please do leave us a review on there. We really do appreciate it. It helps grow the podcast. If you've already done that and you want to give more, you know the drill now. Head over to buymeacoffee.com and you can find us on there. Also linked in the show notes below. Thanks, as always, for listening to this episode, and we'll speak to you again soon on the next one of the Belgian Football Podcast.